Memorial Day weekend was supposed to be a relaxing escape. I, Anna Thompson, 35 years old and happily married for 8 years, had convinced my husband David to drive out to my parents' small-town home in rural Colorado. The house was a modest ranch-style place my adoptive parents had owned for decades, nestled in a quiet neighborhood that was slowly being eyed for redevelopment. David and I lived in Denver, where he worked as a software engineer, and I managed a local bookstore. We didn't get out to see Mom and Dad often, but I always felt a pull to maintain those family ties, no matter how strained they sometimes felt. As we pulled into the gravel driveway, the front door swung open, and there she was, my younger sister, Lily. She was waving enthusiastically, dressed in a sleek black sundress that hugged her curves and stopped mid-thigh, showing off her long, toned legs that seemed to go on forever. At 28, Lily had that effortless beauty, wavy auburn hair cascading over her shoulders, bright green eyes sparkling with mischief, and a figure that turned heads, full hips, a narrow waist, and an energy that screamed confidence. "Anna, David, you made it," she called, her voice light and teasing. David parked the car and I stepped out first, hugging her tightly. She smelled of vanilla and something floral, her skin soft and warm. "It's good to see you, Lil," I said, pulling back to look at her. She was always the prettier one, the one who got the attention growing up. I, on the other hand, was more understated, shoulder-length brown hair, hazel eyes, and a practical style that suited my 5'6" frame. Comfortable jeans and a blouse were my go-to, nothing flashy. Lily turned her attention to David, her smile widening. "Hey, big brother-in-law," she purred, stepping close and giving him a hug that lingered a second too long. I noticed her hand pat his back, then slide down slightly before pulling away. David, 37 and fit from his daily gym routine, broad shoulders, short dark hair, and a trimmed beard, chuckled awkwardly, his blue eyes glancing my way. "Good to see you too, Lily. You look great," she laughed, a throaty sound, and linked her arm with his as we walked inside. "Oh, David, always the charmer. How do you stay so toned? You must teach Chris your secrets. He's getting a bit soft around the edges." Chris was her husband, a local mechanic who spent more time at the bar than in the garage, from what I'd heard. Inside, Mom and Dad greeted us warmly. Mom, in her late 50s with graying hair and a kind but weary face, hugged me tight. Dad, stout and balding, clapped David on the back. The house smelled of fresh-baked pie and coffee, a comforting reminder of childhood. But as we settled in, I couldn't shake the unease. Lily kept glancing at David, her eyes lingering on his arms, his chest. "Anna, you're so lucky," she whispered to me later in the kitchen, her voice conspiratorial. "David's a catch. Chris, not so much in the stamina department, if you know what I mean." I forced a smile, but inside something twisted. Lily and I weren't blood sisters. I was adopted at age 2 after my parents couldn't conceive. Then, 2 years later, Lily came along naturally. Growing up, I did all the chores, dropped out of high school to work and support the family, while Lily got the new clothes and the freedom. I never resented her much. She was my sister. But moments like this made me wonder. That afternoon, while I helped Mom in the kitchen, David and Chris went out to the backyard to help with chores. I overheard snippets. Chris asking David about our marriage. You know, the intimate side. David laughed it off. But when he came back, his face was flushed. "Your sister's husband is chatty," he muttered to me. As evening fell, Lily's flirting escalated. At dinner, she sat next to David, her leg brushing his under the table. I pretended not to notice, but my heart raced. Dinner was a spread of grilled burgers and potato salad, typical for our family gatherings. Mom fussed over the plates, Dad cracked jokes, and Lily dominated the conversation with stories from town. She looked stunning under the porch lights, her sundress accentuating her sun-kissed skin, and the way she moved with a sway in her hips. David kept his eyes on his plate mostly, but I saw him glance up once or twice, his expression polite but guarded. After eating, Lily pulled me aside to the living room. "Anna, tell me everything. How's married life? David keeping you satisfied?" Her eyes twinkled, and she leaned in close, her breath warm on my ear. I blushed. I'm not one for sharing details. "We're good, Lil. Happy." But she pressed, and soon we were whispering like old times. "Half an hour? Wow, sis. Chris barely lasts 5 minutes. I envy you." I shushed her, glancing toward the kitchen where the men were. Later, David told me about his chat with Chris in the yard. He was asking for tips on pleasing Lily, said she demands it every day, sometimes 3 times. I felt bad for the guy. He's out of shape, lanky with a beer gut starting. But it was awkward. That night, Lily insisted on a sister's sleepover in her old room, chatting late. David was in the guest room alone. I missed him, but obliged. As we lay in the dark, Lily's voice turned serious. "Anna, Chris, and we're trying for a baby, but it's not happening. He's not up to it." I comforted her, but something in her tone felt off. The next morning, I woke to find Lily gone. I found her in the kitchen with David, laughing over coffee. She was in a short robe, her legs crossed, leaning toward him. "Morning, sis," she said innocently. David looked relieved to see me. Flashbacks hit me as I watched them. Growing up, I worked 2 jobs after dropping out, sending money home so Lily could finish school. When David and I married, Mom took our $50,000 wedding gift and gave it to Lily for her own wedding to Chris. I'd forgiven it. Family, right? But now, with Lily's eyes on my husband, old hurts resurfaced. Chris joined us, his disheveled hair and rumpled shirt contrasting David's neat appearance. "Hey, bro-in-law. Thanks for the advice yesterday." David nodded awkwardly. As the day went on, Lily's touches, a hand on David's arm, a playful pinch, grew bolder. I pulled her aside. "What's going on?" She smiled. "Just teasing, Anna. Relax." But I couldn't. That evening, as we sat around the fire pit, Lily's husband Chris pulled David aside again. Later, David confided, "He's desperate about the baby thing, thinks I'm the expert or something." I laughed, but unease lingered. The second night of our visit dragged on with the same uneasy undercurrent. Lily had insisted once again on a sister's sleepover in her old bedroom, the one we'd shared as kids with its faded pink walls and posters of boy bands still peeling at the edges. I agreed, though I longed to be with David in the guest room down the hall. He walked me to the door, his strong hand lingering on my waist as he pulled me close for a goodnight kiss. His lips were warm against mine, and he whispered, "Miss you already, Anna. Sleep well." I smiled up at him, tracing the line of his jaw with my fingers. His beard felt rough but comforting under my touch. David was my rock, always had been, with his steady blue eyes and the way he made me feel secure in a world that often hadn't. Inside the room, Lily was already lounging on the bed in her silk pajamas, the fabric clinging to her curves as she propped herself up on one elbow. Her auburn hair fell loosely around her face, and those green eyes sparkled with that familiar mischief. "Come on, sis, hop in. We haven't had a proper chat in ages." We settled under the covers, the mattress creaking under our weight, and she launched into stories about town gossip, who was cheating on whom, which neighbor had won the lottery. But her questions kept steering toward David. "He's so strong, Anna. Those arms from all that gym time. You must feel so safe with him, right? Tell me, does he hold you tight at night?" I shifted uncomfortably, pulling the blanket higher. "Yeah, Lil, he's great. We have a good life in Denver." But she wouldn't let it go, pressing for details about our intimacy in that bold way of hers. "Come on, Spill. Chris is, well, let's just say, he's not exactly a marathon runner in bed. I bet David is, though." Her laughter was light, but it made my cheeks burn. I changed the subject, talking about my bookstore job, until exhaustion finally pulled me under. Sometime after midnight, I stirred awake to the soft creak of the bedroom door. The room was pitch dark except for a sliver of moonlight from the window. Lily's side of the bed was empty, the sheets cool to the touch. My heart started pounding, a mix of confusion and dread. Where could she be going at this hour? I slipped out of bed quietly, my bare feet cold on the hardwood floor, and padded into the hallway. The house was silent, save for the distant hum of crickets outside. Then I heard it, a faint whisper from the guest room door, followed by the click of it opening and closing. My pulse raced as I crept closer, pressing my ear against the wood. Lily's voice came through, soft and sultry. "David, you awake?" I couldn't sleep. There was a rustle of sheets, and David's voice responded, groggy but startled. "Lily, what the hell are you doing in here? It's the middle of the night." She giggled, that throaty sound I'd heard her use on men before. "Oh, come on. I thought you might be lonely without Anna. We could keep each other company." I froze, my hand trembling on the doorknob. David's tone sharpened, firm and unyielding. "This is completely inappropriate, Lily. Anna's right next door. Your sister, my wife. You need to leave now." But she didn't back down. Her voice turned pleading, laced with desperation. "David, please. You don't understand. Chris and we're trying for a baby, but he can't. It's been 2 years and the pressure in this small town is killing us. People whisper, stare. I need help. Just this once. It would mean everything to me, to our family." My stomach twisted in knots. I nearly burst through the door, but something held me back. I trusted David, and I wanted to hear how he'd handle it. His rejection was immediate, his voice steady but kind. "Lily, no, that's not how this works. I love Anna. I won't betray her. And even if I wanted to help, there are better ways, like doctors, fertility treatments. This is wrong on every level. You have to understand the pressure you're talking about. Imagine what this would do to Anna, to all of us." She started crying then, soft sobs that echoed through the door. "You don't get it. The gossip, the judgment. Please, David, just think about it." He calmed her gently, his words patient. "I'm sorry you're going through this, but no. Talk to Anna first if it's really about family. Now go back to bed before someone hears." After a long pause, I heard footsteps, and the door creaked open. I darted back to our room just in time, sliding under the covers and pretending to sleep as Lily slipped in, her breathing uneven. She didn't say a word, but my mind was racing. Betrayal, confusion, anger swirling inside me. How could she do this? Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, but the air felt heavy with unspoken tension. I barely spoke to Lily over breakfast, my coffee tasting bitter. Mom noticed and called a family meeting in the living room, her face lined with concern. We all gathered. Lily sat on the couch, teary-eyed, with her makeup still somehow flawless, dabbing at her cheeks with a tissue. Chris slouched beside her, his thin frame looking even more defeated in his wrinkled t-shirt, his eyes downcast like a scolded dog. Dad paced near the window, his balding head gleaming under the lamp, glowering at everyone. Mom cleared her throat, her graying hair tied back in a bun. "Anna, we need to talk. Lily's been struggling. Chris, he's infertile. They've tried everything, but no luck. We want David to help, to donate, the old-fashioned way." I stared at her, the words sinking in like ice water. "You mean, sleep with her? Mom, that's insane." My voice cracked, and David squeezed my hand, his grip reassuring. Lily chimed in, her voice wobbly. "Please, Anna, it's for the family. You're adopted, but Mom and Dad, they're my blood. I need this." The reminder stung like a slap, highlighting my outsider status all over again. "No way," I snapped, my heart aching. "This isn't right." But they piled on the pressure, Mom starting to cry. "It's your duty as a sister. After all we've done for you?" David stepped in calmly, his engineer mind kicking in. Look, if it's really about a baby, there are modern options. IVF, or even artificial insemination. It's safer, private, and cheap, like around $1,000 at a clinic. Their reactions were immediate and odd, eyes shifting, faces paling. Lily shook her head vehemently. No, that leaves records. What if the town finds out? Gossip would ruin us. Mom and Dad nodded in agreement, but something felt off. Their refusal too quick, too unified. I sensed a setup brewing, but couldn't quite pinpoint it yet. The room fell silent, the weight of their expectations pressing down like a storm cloud. The family meeting in the cramped living room dragged on for what felt like hours. The air thick with tension and the faint smell of Mom's morning coffee still lingering. Lily sat across from us on the worn floral sofa, her tight red top clinging to her curves and dipping low enough to reveal a hint of lace from her bra. She leaned forward, her auburn waves falling over one shoulder, and fixed her pleading green eyes on David. Please, David, brother-in-law, she said, her voice soft and trembling, like she was on the verge of tears. You don't understand how hard this has been for me and Chris. We've tried everything, but nothing works. I just need a little help from family. For me, please, it would mean the world. As she spoke, she reached out and placed her manicured hand on his knee, squeezing gently, her touch lingering in a way that made my stomach churn. David shifted uncomfortably, his broad shoulders tensing under his button-up shirt, and he gently but firmly moved her hand away. Lily, this isn't right, he replied, his voice steady but kind. We're family, but this crosses a line. There are other ways to handle this without something so personal. Mom, perched on the edge of her armchair with her graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, turned her sharp gaze on me, her face etched with disappointment. Anna, how can you just sit there and say no, after everything we've done for you growing up? And now, when your own sister, your flesh and blood, even if you're adopted, needs help, you won't lift a finger? We've sacrificed so much for this family, and you've always been the responsible one. Don't turn your back on us now. Her words hit like a punch, dredging up memories of those long nights waitressing, scraping together every dollar while Lily got to stay in school and enjoy her teenage years. I'd sent thousands over the years, not to mention the wedding gift we'd given when David and I married, money that Mom had immediately funneled to Lily for her own lavish ceremony with Chris. Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back, my hands clenched in my lap. David, sensing my distress, wrapped an arm around my shoulders and squeezed reassuringly. Anna's given more than enough already, he said firmly, his blue eyes meeting Mom's without flinching. She supported this family for years, even when it meant putting her own dreams on hold. We love you all, but this request, it's not fair to her or to us. But they wouldn't let up. Dad, his balding head shining under the ceiling light, and his stout frame rigid in his recliner, chimed in with a gruff nod. Artificial stuff like IVF or insemination, that's too expensive and complicated. Leaves records everywhere. People in this small town talk, you know. We need to keep it in the family, natural-like. No doctors, no gossip. Mom nodded vigorously. Exactly. Why make it harder when there's a simple solution right here? Lily added, Yeah, sis, it's just once or twice. Think of the baby. It'd be like a little piece of our family. Finally, David sighed, rubbing his beard thoughtfully as if weighing the options. All right, give me 4 days to think it over. I'll come back then. I whipped my head toward him, my heart sinking, betrayed, hurt flashing across my face. But he caught my eye and gave a subtle wink, so quick I almost missed it. It was enough to plant a seed of hope amid the confusion. We packed up and left shortly after, the silence in the car heavy as we pulled onto the highway. I stared out the window at the passing fields, tears finally spilling over. Why did you agree, David? Even pretend to? I whispered, my voice breaking. He glanced over, then pulled the car onto the shoulder, turning off the engine. Trust me, Anna, he said gently, taking my hands in his. This whole thing smells like a scam. Remember my friend Mike from work? He went through something similar. His in-laws set him up for blackmail to get his inheritance property. I think they're after our Denver house. It's David's family home, but with the new tech parks booming in the area, it's set to be worth $800,000 once the redevelopment hits. They're not after a baby, they're after the money. I wiped my tears, processing his words. The house had been in his family for generations, a charming two-story Victorian in a neighborhood ripe for urban renewal. It made sense, their refusal of medical options, the odd insistence on natural methods. So, what do we do? I asked, my voice steadier. He kissed my forehead, his touch warm and reassuring. We'll turn the tables on them, play along, gather proof, and expose the truth. They won't know what hit them. For the first time that day, I felt a spark of resolve, nodding as we drove on, the plan forming like a shield against the betrayal. Back in our Denver home, the familiar warmth of our two-story Victorian house wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. The living room, with its soft beige couches and the bay window overlooking our quiet suburban street, had always been our safe haven after long days. But that evening, as David and I sat down to a simple dinner of grilled chicken and salad at our oak kitchen table, the air felt heavy with the weight of what had happened at my parents' place. I poked at my food, my mind replaying the family meeting, the pleading looks from Lily, the accusatory stares from Mom and Dad, and Chris's awkward silence. It all felt like a bad dream, but David's steady presence grounded me. He set down his fork and reached across the table to take my hand, his fingers warm and reassuring. "Anna, listen to me," he said, his blue eyes locking onto mine with that intense focus he got when solving a problem at work. This isn't about helping Lily with a baby. It's a setup, a classic family scam to get their hands on our house. Remember my friend Mark from the office? He went through something similar last year with his in-laws. They faked a crisis to blackmail him into signing over his inheritance property. Ours is worth at least $800,000 now, especially with the new tech development zoning in the neighborhood, turning it into prime real estate. They're after that payout, not a grandchild. I pulled my hand back slightly, my heart aching at the betrayal. But David, Lily's my sister. Adopted or not, we've shared so much. Growing up, I was always the one scrubbing floors and washing laundry while she got to play outside or go to dances. I've forgiven so much, but this, asking you to be with her, it feels like they've never seen me as real family. David nodded, his expression softening with empathy. I know it hurts, sweetheart. That's why we can't let them win. My plan is to play along just enough to expose them. I'll go back in 4 days, pretend to agree, but I'll record every word with this. He pulled a small, discreet digital recorder from his pocket, the kind he used for work meetings. It's voice-activated, crystal-clear audio. We'll get them admitting it's all about the money. And for added drama, because I suspect they'll burst in to catch us, I'll bring these. He grinned mischievously, holding up a pair of novelty handcuffs from our drawer of gag gifts. Nothing serious, just enough to make the scene look incriminating on their terms, but we'll turn it around. I hesitated, biting my lip as tears welled up. The thought of him even pretending with Lily made my stomach churn. Her flawless auburn hair, those curves she flaunted so easily, compared to my more modest figure. Are you sure this won't backfire? What if they call the police anyway? And what about us? Can we really come back from this? He leaned in, cupping my face gently. Trust me, Anna. I've thought it through. We'll document everything, and if it goes south, we have proof of their coercion. But I won't let them hurt you anymore. You're my family now. His words melted my doubts, and I nodded slowly. Okay, but promise you'll be careful. I can't lose you to this mess. The next 4 days blurred into a mix of anxious preparation and forced normalcy. At work in the bookstore, I shelved novels absent-mindedly, my thoughts drifting to childhood memories, Mom praising Lily's report cards while dismissing my efforts, Dad buying her a bike with money I'd earned waitressing. David and I talked late into the nights, rehearsing scenarios over coffee in our cozy kitchen. He tested the recorder, packed a small bag with the device hidden in his toiletry kit and the handcuffs tucked away. "It's foolproof," he assured me, pulling me into a hug that lingered, his strong arms reminding me why I trusted him so completely. Finally, the morning came. We loaded the car and drove back to rural Colorado, the highway stretching out like a path to confrontation. My hands fidgeted in my lap as we neared my parents' house. Lily greeted us at the door in a low-cut blouse and shorts that left little to the imagination, her body language screaming seduction as she hugged David a bit too tightly. "Ready for this, David?" she whispered, her green eyes gleaming. Mom stood behind her, beaming like this was a normal family visit. That night, as Lily and I settled into the sisters' room again, her chattering about nothing while I lay awake, heart pounding with anticipation, I whispered a silent prayer that David's plan would work. The stage was set, and soon, the truth would come crashing down. The clock in the hallway ticked relentlessly toward midnight, each second amplifying my anxiety. I lay in the darkened sisters' room, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Lily had been fidgety all evening, tossing and turning beside me, her auburn hair splayed across the pillow. I pretended to sleep, but my mind raced with David's plan. "Trust me," he'd whispered earlier, his blue eyes steady and reassuring as he squeezed my hand. "This will expose them once and for all." Finally, around 12:15, Lily slipped out of bed quietly, her silhouette graceful in the moonlight filtering through the curtains. She was wearing a thin nightgown that clung to her curves, emphasizing her full figure and long legs. I waited a few breaths, then followed on tiptoe, my bare feet silent on the creaky wooden floor. Positioning myself outside the guest room door, I pressed my ear against the cool wood, my phone clutched in my hand, ready to record if needed. I could hear the faint rustle as she entered. "David, it's me." Lily's voice purred softly, laced with anticipation. "I've been waiting all day. You promised to help me tonight." David's response was calm, playing his role perfectly. "Yeah, Lily. Come in. But remember, we do this my way. No rushing." There was a pause, then the soft click of the door closing. I imagined him sitting up in bed, his broad shoulders tense, the recorder hidden nearby capturing every word. She giggled, a low, seductive sound. "Oh, I like a man who takes charge. What did you have in mind, brother-in-law?" "Something to make it memorable," he replied, his tone even. I heard the metallic jingle of the handcuffs he'd packed, part of the setup to create evidence of force, but really to control the scene. "Hands up here. Trust me, it'll be fun." Lily hesitated for a split second, then laughed again. "Kinky. I didn't peg you for the type, David. But okay, I'm game. Just promise you'll be gentle, at first." The clicks echoed. First her wrists, then her ankles secured to the bed frame. For the next 40 minutes, there were muffled sounds, whispers, rustling sheets, her exaggerated moans that made my stomach twist with jealousy, even though I knew it was all an act. David had assured me, no real intimacy, just enough noise and performance to sell the illusion. Still hearing it gnawed at me, my nails digging into my palms as I fought the urge to burst in. Suddenly, Lily's voice shifted from playful to panicked. "Wait, David, no! You beast! What are you doing?" A loud crash followed, the glass cup from the nightstand shattering on the floor. The signal we'd planned. The house erupted. Doors slammed open down the hall. Mom, Dad, and Chris barreled toward the room, their footsteps thundering. "What's going on?" Mom shrieked, her graying hair disheveled in her robe. Dad, stout and red-faced, looked furious. Chris, lanky and wild-eyed in his pajamas, led the charge. I slipped in behind them, my heart in my throat. The scene unfolded just as David had predicted, Him sitting shirtless on the edge of the bed, his muscular frame glistening slightly with staged sweat. Lily cuffed, spread-eagled, her nightgown hiked up, tears streaming down her flawless face as she clutched the sheets for modesty. He forced me!" she wailed, her green eyes wide with feigned horror. "David attacked me!" Chris lunged forward, his fists swinging wildly. "You bastard! What did you do to my wife?" David dodged effortlessly, his gym-honed reflexes kicking in, pushing Chris back gently but firmly. "Calm down. It's not what it looks like," Mom wailed dramatically, clutching her chest. "Oh God, my baby girl, how could you, David?" "My time." Dad stepped forwards, his balding head shining under the lamplight, voice booming. "This is unforgivable. You'll compensate us for this outrage. The Denver house, all $800,000 of it. Transfer it to Lily, or we'll call the cops." I stood frozen in the doorway, the pieces falling into place, their greedy eyes, the scripted chaos. It was all a trap, just as David had suspected. The room erupted into pandemonium as everyone crowded in, the air thick with tension and the sharp scent of Lily's perfume mixed with the stale night air from the open door. Lily, her sundress twisted and rumpled around her thighs, huddled on the bed with tears streaming down her flushed cheeks, her auburn hair disheveled and sticking to her damp face. She clutched the sheet to her chest, her green eyes wide with feigned horror as she turned to me. "Anna! Sis, he forced me. I came in to talk, and he handcuffed me and wouldn't stop." Her voice broke into sobs, but I could see the flicker of calculation behind her tears, the same look she'd given me as a kid when she'd broken something and blamed me. David, still shirtless with his muscular chest rising and falling steadily, remained remarkably calm amid the storm. He stood tall, his blue eyes steady as he met my gaze first, reassuring me with a subtle nod. Then he turned to the group. "This whole thing is a setup," he said evenly, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "They're not after a baby. They're after our Denver house. It's worth $800,000 now with the redevelopment coming. That's what this charade is about, blackmailing us into handing it over." Mom, her graying hair frizzy from sleep and her nightgown askew, lunged toward me with a wild swing, her face twisted in rage. "You ungrateful girl! How dare you let this happen?" Her hand came flying at my cheek, but David stepped in front of me, catching her wrist gently but firmly. "Stop it! Anna's your daughter. Treat her like one," he barked, his protective stance making my heart swell even in the chaos. But Mom yanked her arm free, her eyes narrowing with venom. "Daughter? She's adopted. Always has been the outsider. We raised her out of pity." Dad, stout and red-faced in his pajamas, nodded grimly from the corner, his balding head glistening under the harsh bedroom light. Chris, lanky and furious, paced like a caged animal, his fists clenched. "You bastard! I'll kill you for touching my wife!" He charged again, but David sidestepped, pushing him back toward the bed without escalating. Lily sneered through her sobs, wiping her eyes dramatically. "We have evidence, right here in me. We'll go to the police, say it was rape. You'll both rot in jail unless you sign over that house." I couldn't hold back anymore. The dam of years of resentment burst. My voice trembled at first, then grew stronger as I faced them all. "After everything I've given you, and now, after all that sacrifice, you want our home? The one place that's truly ours?" They exchanged glances. Then Mom laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed in the small room. "Adopted doesn't count, Anna. You're not real family. Lily's our blood. You owe us for taking you in." Dad grunted in agreement. "Hand over the deed, or we'll make sure everyone knows what your husband did." The words hit like a slap, but in that moment, clarity washed over me. I grabbed David's hand, feeling his steady pulse ground me. We weren't backing down, not to this betrayal. The room fell into a tense silence as David stood there, his expression calm and resolute amid the chaos. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small recording device, holding it up like a trophy. "Before you go any further with these threats," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the anger swirling around us, "you might want to hear this." With a simple press of a button, the recorder sprang to life, filling the air with Lily's own words from earlier that night. Her voice, sultry and eager, echoed clearly. "David, I'm here. Oh, those handcuffs? True. I didn't expect that, but I like it. Really, I do. Keep going." The effect was immediate and devastating. Lily's face drained of color, her green eyes widening in shock as she clutched the bedsheet tighter around her. That's not what it sounds like," she stammered, her earlier tears now seeming forced and hollow. Mom, still on the floor where she'd dramatically collapsed, stopped her wailing mid-sob and stared at the device in horror. "Entrapment! This is entrapment!" she shrieked, her voice cracking as she pointed a trembling finger at David. "You tricked her! You set this up!" Dad, who had been pacing angrily, froze in place, his stout frame suddenly deflated. Chris, rubbing his jaw from where David had pushed him away, muttered under his breath, "You bastard! How dare you record that?" But there was no real fight left in him. His lanky shoulders slumped as the reality sank in. David shook his head, his blue eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "No, this isn't entrapment. Listen again." Lily consented every step of the way. She came to me, initiated everything. "We never actually went through with it. This was all to expose your scam. You've been plotting to blackmail us for the Denver house, the one worth $800,000 with the redevelopment payout. Well, game's over. Consent is crystal clear on tape, and any court would see this for what it is, your family's extortion attempt." I stood beside him, my heart pounding but filled with a mix of relief and vindication. The hurt from years of being the overlooked adopted daughter, the one who sacrificed her education, sent money home endlessly, even gave up our wedding fund for Lily, finally boiled over into strength. "How could you do this to us?" I asked, my voice trembling but firm. "After everything I've given? You're not family. You're opportunists." Mom tried to rally, scrambling to her feet with a glare. "You ungrateful girl! We raised you!" But David cut her off gently, taking my hand. "Enough. We're leaving. No more money, no more visits. This ends here." As we gathered our things and walked out, their screams followed us. Lily cursing, Mom wailing about family betrayal, Dad threatening empty lawsuits. The door slammed shut behind us, cutting off their voices like a final punctuation. Driving back to Denver under the starry sky, I leaned against David, tears of release streaming down my face. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing through it all." He kissed my forehead. "We're free now, Anna. No more burdens." In the weeks that followed, we cut all ties. No more financial support, no responses to their desperate calls. The Denver house sold quickly in the booming market, netting us enough to secure our future, a down payment on a new home, investments for retirement. As for Lily, word trickled back through mutual acquaintances. She divorced Chris soon after. The scandal too much for their fragile marriage, she moved away from the small town, chasing some vague dream in the city, but without our help. Sitting in our living room one evening, I raised a glass of wine to David, his strong features softened by the lamplight. "To you, my love, for protecting us, for outsmarting them. Justice served." He clinked his glass against mine, and in that moment, I felt truly whole. If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. For the next tale, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.